Hey guys, welcome back here to the hillside. Today we're going to talk about the pros and cons of winter sowing. Okay, so if you're not familiar with winter sowing, it's basically you're taking a 2-liter pop bottle and then you cut it around the sides, make it basically a little hinge like this, tape it up, put your seeds in it, and you keep it outside. Okay, so the theory being that working like nature, the seeds will sprout when they want to, whenever they're actually, warm enough, they can just sprout on their own. Okay, so a pro would be that you don't have to worry about putting this inside under grow lights, wasting energy or forgetting to water it or something like that. So definitely this is a way to kind of speed up the spring season, save space, and just get a good head start. However, it's not always a good thing. So let me talk about some of the cons of winter sowing, at least in my experience. All right, so one of the cons of winter sowing is, just look at this. Okay, these are just an assortment of cabbages I was doing as an experiment. Now they're doing healthy. I mean, they're doing wonderful. However, when it comes time to transplant these guys, I mean, look how many is in there. I way oversowed this. Okay, and typically you're going to do that winter sowing because unless you're just going to put one seed and hope for the best, typically you're going to overplant. So a bad thing about the winter sowing method is, what do you do with all these roots? Okay, dividing these out and separating them out can be pretty difficult. You could have some transplant shock. You might damage some of the roots and set the plants back. So all in all, how much did you really gain, right? So you got to think about that. So one thing to take in consideration, don't plant very many seeds, or else you could end up with a situation like this where it's basically going to be unusable, some of these seedlings. Okay, so as I've mentioned before, some of the pros of winter sowing are outweighed by some of the negative. The one thing I find to be a negative is temperature regulation. Okay, so you keep your winter sowing containers like these seed-grown asparagus right here, which is also another jumbled mess, and I'll get into the reason why that is here in a second. However, these are little greenhouses, okay? So if this gets a nice, warm, sunny day out of nowhere, maybe it gets, it's been consistently in the 30s or 40s, one day it jumps up to like 65, you go to work, you go to school, you forget about it. This little dome here, guys, if it's out in the sun, it's gonna amplify the temperature. It's gonna be just a really, really intense greenhouse for these seedlings, and you could actually fry your seedlings, burn the leaves, or maybe even kill them completely if they get too hot. So you have to basically monitor the temperature. You're gonna have to go ahead and you're gonna have to actually unscrew the lids to make sure it gets the vent out so it doesn't get too hot. You're gonna have to remember to water these guys. So there are a lot of positives, but I think that to me is one of the more annoying things of winter sowing, especially if you have maybe dozens and dozens. Okay, I've only done a couple this year just for a demonstration, but I know I've seen people that swear by it, that grow, milk jugs and pop bottles. They have 30, 40, 50 of them on their front porch or back porch or wherever, and they're very successful. So if that's something you're willing to do and put the time into it, and you can actually monitor that and actually stay on top of it, go for it. Okay, so if it works for you, that's great. For me, I think it's a little bit too much babysitting involved, with too much risk without really that much reward, other than getting a head start on growing some seeds. However, this right here will bring me to another point. So these asparagus seeds I grew indoors under grow lights, and they're doing quite well. They're kind of falling over, but that's okay. Right here though, these are the asparagus I grew winter sowing wise that were sowed basically at the same time as these. Now, what happened is, and this is another one of my cons for winter sowing, I had a big windstorm came through one time, and this basically, the dirt was all upside down, the bottle was jostled all around, so all the seeds, I guess, when they just came back in one little spot, because they were spread all around, but as you can see, and some of these even have the plants have actually even come out of the soil due to being blown over in the windstorm. So that's another thing to take in consideration. You have to consider the weather, not just the hot sun, but is it going to be really windy? Are you going to have a really gusty day? If these are not in a really secured location, they could fall over. If they fall over, your seeds go everywhere, and then you end up with something like this little jumbled mess here, as opposed to being able to control the temperature indoors and regulate the light, the water, humidity, temperature for your seedlings. So there you go. So let's go ahead and talk about something else. All right, so I know it may sound like I'm coming off as a winter sowing hater, and that's absolutely not the case. I don't prefer using the pop bottle or the Coke bottle, whatever you want to call it, method. I prefer something like this. All right, now this is a very lightweight, portable cold frame. Now this hinges up, you can prop it up for ventilation. You can plant directly into the soil, which will give you a head start on growing. And when the time comes, if you want, you can just move the cold frame to someplace else and the plants are off to an early start without having to worry about transplanting. You can put containers in here that are easily to just move out to the location that you want them to stay at after they are, the weather is suitable for your area. And the best thing I said, like, this is portable. Guys, this thing literally weighs like 2 pounds, okay? So like I said, you can get some stuff started. Once it's established, you can pick the whole thing up, move it someplace else, and start again. So I highly recommend something like this. This is just a cheap little vinyl, I don't even know, plastic panes right here. It's really simple, it's lightweight, it does the job. Basically the same thing as the winter sowing method without the risk of overplanting and transplanting and venting it out. And like I said, venting is a breeze. You can actually do this, and there's a little knob on the side there. You actually can tighten it down so it'll stay open. But there you go, one little act right here. You vent it out. All the seedlings are taken care of. You don't need to worry about going through 10 different bottles every day. And is it going to be too hot, too cold, too windy? Is it going to rain? Is it going to be a storm? You know, it just takes all the variables out of it. Okay, controls them to the best of your ability. So there you guys go. Just some pros and cons of the winter sowing and why I prefer the portable cold frame method as opposed to the bottle method. Just something for you guys to consider in your garden this year when you're talking about planting seeds and getting ready for the season. So hopefully these tips helped you guys out. And if it did, please give this video a thumbs up, and I'll see you next time here at the Hillside. All right, guys, bye-bye.